بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وقدوتنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم اللهم أعلمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everybody, welcome. Saturday morning, beginning classical Arabic, and we have a new lesson and a new idea. We are getting into pronouns. What is a pronoun? A pronoun is simply a word that takes the place of a noun. Whether that noun is a proper noun, like Muhammad or Mecca, or whether that noun is a common noun, al-kitab, al-walad. Why do we use pronouns in language? We use pronouns in language to not sound redundant, because redundancy is inefficient. So instead of saying, if you're telling a story or your next 6 sentences are going to be about your book, it would be burdensome to have to keep saying this book and the book and the book and the book. Every single sentence you're saying the book. People would stare at you. They would think that you were strange. They would think that this is strange and it wouldn't sound eloquent. Why? Because it's not efficient. It's insulting to the intelligence. You already know what the other person is talking about. In English, we would start to use the word it as a pronoun to refer back to that noun that we had initially introduced. The same with a person. If we're telling many things about Muhammad, we're saying Muhammad this, Muhammad that, and then Muhammad went to the store, and then Muhammad came back, and then Muhammad, he took a bath, and then Muhammad, he went to bed. Right? This is extremely inefficient. It's somewhat insulting for the intelligence of the listener. And so after we've introduced the subject, we can simply say he. Then he did this, then he did that, then he did this. So that's the idea of pronouns. The idea of pronouns is that they take the place of a noun to increase efficiency, eliminate redundancy, and basically just sound better. Pronouns are one of the few places in the English language where we have case endings, or we demonstrate case. Old English, even Middle English, demonstrated grammatical case, just like Arabic does, right? You guys, maybe you're familiar with some of the, even in the archaic translations of the Quran, thou who bearest, and thou doth this and this. These are all case conjugations. They're either verb conjugations or they're grammatical cases that we simply don't demonstrate anymore. However, the relic or the artifact in the English language that's left over that shows how we used to do this all the time is in pronouns. If we look at pronouns, we have different forms depending on whether the pronoun is in the nominative case, or if it's in the accusative case, or it's in the genitive case. The same exact sort of grammatical cases we have in Arabic. So we have subject pronouns, certain pronouns that we use if the person or thing we're talking about is the mubtada, right? The subject of the sentence. He goes to the store. He is a nice boy. She is a good person. They, you all, I, and we are all how we use subject pronouns in English. But all those pronouns change if what we're talking about now becomes the object of a verb. We don't say, I gave it to he, or I wrote he a letter. That would be incorrect, because in English we differentiate between case in pronouns. I wrote him a letter. He is the object of the verb. This is the accusative case, corresponds with mansub in Arabic, usually has a fatha. I gave it to her. I saw them. Tell us. And so on and so forth. And finally, we have possessive pronouns. Recall that possession, ownership, is part of the genitive case, which corresponds to majroor in Arabic, right? The genitive case in all languages talks about relationships between two nouns, whether that relationship is a relationship of place or of time or of possession. So if we're talking about a book that belongs to somebody, we don't say he book or him book, we have to say his book. The pronouns have changed yet again to demonstrate to us that they are in the genitive case, that they're talking about possession. Her story, their car, your house, my brother, our vacation. All of these sorts of things. So we have a really, really nice analogous situation between Arabic and English here. So it's going to correspond pretty similarly, with one little wrinkle that actually makes Arabic pronouns easier, okay? Where in Arabic, we have the same three categories. We have subject pronouns, we have object pronouns, and we have possessive pronouns, okay? The actual forms of the word are only distinct or only fall into two categories. There's one form of pronouns for subjects, and there's a second form of pronouns that's used for both object pronouns and possessive pronouns. If you're looking for a quick example, we'll get into all of this in a second. If I say, for example, what do I say? I said, I saw, and I'm sparing you the verb I saw, his pen, qalamahu, right? Who here is the possessive pronoun, his pen. And if I want to say, I did something to him, we always use daraba, which is to hit or to strike. Darabahu, him, right? So in this case, this means his, and the who down here means him, okay? Because Arabic assumes that you're smarter than English does. Arabic assumes that you're able to differentiate based off of the context, the difference between his and him, that one of them is a possessive pronoun and one of them is an object pronoun. So the forms are the same, even if the meanings are different. Here, this means possession. Here, this means the object of the verb. But we will get into that in a second. But just be aware so that it's easier. In English, we have three forms. Those three forms of pronouns correspond neatly with every different meaning. In Arabic, we only have two forms. One form for subject pronouns and one form for both object and possessive pronouns. So what are they? Let's take a look. Number in Arabic is more complicated than English. And it's a pretty unique feature of the Arabic language that there is not just a singular or a plural, but there is a dual number. Yes, there is a form that indicates a pair of something, two of something. We're not going to worry about that for a long time. So just ignore it, because it will be taught within this book as its own separate sort of lesson. So you don't even need to pay any attention to this column. Focusing on the other two columns, we see we have a chart here, singular and plural. These are all of our subject pronouns in Arabic. We've been learning most of them previously to be able to say, he did this, or he is this, she, they, we, and so on and so forth. We have, for the third person singular, huwa. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. say, he is Allah, the unique. Huwa means he. Hiya. Hiya means her, or excuse me, means she. Subject pronouns. She is this. She went to the store, etc., etc. Is there such a thing as it in Arabic? No, there is no such thing as it in Arabic because all nouns are gendered in Arabic. So it removes the need to have a gender neutral or a pronoun for an inanimate object. All we use is huwa or hiya depending on the gender of the noun. For the second person, who we're talking to, you, masculine, is anta. Anta. You, feminine, notice the pink color, is anti. Anti. And finally, the first person singular, ana. This alif is silent, the second one, ana. The peak of arrogance was Fir'aun. What does he say in Surah Al-Nazi'at? قَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. I am your Lord and your sustainer most high. So those are the subject pronouns, the singular ones. Huwa, hiya, anta, anti, ana. Moving over to the plural. Third person plural is hum. Hum is used for both a group of men and a group of mixed gender, right? So it is the more important one to learn at this point. Don't worry if you don't want to or find it overwhelming to get the exclusively feminine ones. So we have hun here. It means specifically a group of females. They, all females. And this is a typical feature of language. It's not something chauvinistic about the Arabic language. Romance languages are the same. Spanish, Italian, Romanian, French, where there is a masculine form that is used for a group of people that are either all male or a mix of male and female, and then a separate form for a group that is only female. Same thing in the second person. We have antum for you all, speaking to a group, and antunna, speaking to a group of only females. And finally, we have nahnu, which is for any group of which you belong. Nahnu. So these are all of our subject pronouns. Huwa, hiya, anta, anti, ana. Hum, hun, antum, antun, nahnu. Oops, didn't show up there. So any of the sentences that we have been working on, you can use these in place of other nouns, right? If we said before, al-baytu kabir, kabirun, right? Simple mubtada khabar, we can now say huwa kabir. Huwa kabirun. Either he is big or great, or it is big or great. Hiya kabiratun. Anta mujtahidun. You are a hard worker. Anti mujtahidatun. You, feminine, are a hard worker. And so on and so forth. That's the point of subject pronouns, that you can substitute them in the mubtada for any other noun. All you have to do is keep track of the number and the gender. Coming to the final form, the form in Arabic for the object and possessive pronouns. Again, we're not going to pay any attention to the dual. We have for third person singular, hu. So that both means his and him. Remember our example before. We say kitabuhu, his book. Or darabahu, he hit him. And that applies to every other object pronoun. It's supposed to be a lot. It kind of turned out a little sloppy. The feminine version is ha. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها. Zilzal is an earthquake or a shaking. Zilzalaha, it's shaking. Talking about the earth, belongs to the earth. The earth is feminine in Arabic, so literally her shaking. Looking for an example from the Quran for who, we have Surah Al-Masad, Ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. Mal is money. Maluhu, his money. And so on and so forth. Second person, ka for masculine and ki for feminine. Rabbuka fasabbih bihamdi rabbika, your sustainer. Right? In, what is it, Surah Al-Nasr? Fasabbih bihamdi rabbika wastaghfirhu. Look at that. 2 in 1. Wasabbih bihamdi rabbika. He's talking to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your Lord. Rabbika wastaghfirhu, and ask his forgiveness. And ki is for feminine. Your feminine. We're speaking to a female. The thing that is being possessed is not what has to be female. It's the one that we're speaking to. Like in Surah Al-Dhariyat, when the angels reply to the wife of Ibrahim, alayhi salam, قَالُوا كَذَلِكِ قَالَ رَبُّكِ. Right? Rabbuki. Allah is not feminine. He's not feminine or masculine. He has no gender. But we're talking here to Ibrahim's wife, Rabbuki. First person, we find we have two forms, really one principal form and one sort of phonetic thing going on. The principal form is ya. Any of the objects that you've learned, you want to make it mine. Al-baytu, bayti, my house. Qalami, my pen. Anything else that we had. Masjidi, my masjid. Babi, my door. Ghurfati, my room. So what's the deal with the noon? This is only for words that end in a long vowel. Right? So if we have a word that ends with a ya, for example, we can't add another ya on top of it. We have to break it up, and we break it up with a noon. Moving over to the plural, we have hum. It's just like the subject pronoun with the exception that, notice that it's connected. So if we have hum by itself, then it is a subject pronoun meaning they. If we have it connected to a word, kitabu hum, tacked onto the end there, it is a possessive pronoun. same thing applies. This is for a mixed gender group or a group of males, whereas hun is for a group that is only female. We have kum, rabbukum, as a common expression in the Quran. Ana rabbukum al-a'la, Fir'aun says to the people, I am your, plural, saying your Lord. And if it were exclusively a group of females, it would be kunna. And then finally, we have na. Na is used for we, for us, for us and for our. Our house, baytu na. He hit us, darabana. How can you tell between the two? Because bait is a noun and daraba is a verb. So that's exactly why Arabic assumes that you're intelligent enough to realize that, okay, if this na comes after a verb, then it's the object. And if this na comes after a noun, then it's possessive. Any questions on the forms before we get into the actual lesson? Any questions on what you've seen so far?
The first person, ni. Can you please elaborate that?
Yes, this is a phonetic device, right? So all it does is break up. Let's think. Let's think of a word where it would make sense. For example, if we have, I can think of examples easier with verbs than for some reason nouns aren't coming to me. But the verb waqa, okay? Waqa means to protect. This is actually the root of taqwa. Okay? Waw, qaf, ya. Or waw, qaf, alif. If I want to say Allah protected me, I can't say waqayi, right? We'll have to say waqani, because the alif is a vowel sound, right? And the ya that actually means me is also a long vowel sound. And so we don't have those sorts of diphthongs in Arabic phonetics. They can't be back to back. And so we need some sort of protection, some sort of buffer to bounce one off of the other or to bridge the two, let's say. And so this is why the noon is there.
Excuse me. So in first person, it's not a difference of masculine and feminine here.
It's not. And the student who prepared the slides, we tried to make the colors different when it was a differentiation of masculine and feminine. So notice that masculine is blue and feminine is pink. But they intelligently left them both white because there is no distinction in the first person between masculine and feminine. This is simply a phonetic thing. It's just for how it sounds. Just like when we talked about avoiding two sukoons, Arabic phonetics also doesn't like consonant clusters, right? So if we have a letter with a sukoon and then another letter after it with a sukoon, then Arabic phonetics puts a kesra on that letter. It's not an originally part of the letter kesra. They put it there to break up the sound and to keep it rolling. This is a similar thing. The noon here is simply for phonetic reasons. Good. And we'll see this in action. We'll see this in action. Let's get to the lesson. Okay. Let's have a conversation here between Hamid and Muhammad. Let's go to the Sheikh family. Dr. Zia, could you be Hamid? And Sister Asma, could you be Muhammad?
أنت
أنا طالب بالجامعة.
أنت طالب جديد.
نعم أنا طالب جديد.
من أين أنت؟
أنا من الهند.
ما اسمك؟
اسمي محمد.
ومن ومن هذا الفتى الذي معك؟
هو زميلي.
هو أيضا من الهند؟
لا هو من اليابان.
ما اسمه؟
اسمه حمزة.
ما لغتك ما لغتك يا محمد؟
Good. Almost at the end.
لغة الأردية.
هي لغة سهلة؟
نعم هي لغة سهلة.
وحمزة ما لغته؟
لغة اليابانية وهي لغة صعبة.
أين أبوك يا محمد؟
أبني في الكويت. هو طبيب شهير.
وأين أمك؟
هي أيضا في الكويت. مع أبي. هي مدرسة هناك.
ذهبت إلى الكويت يا محمد؟
نعم ذهبت.
وزميلك أين أبوه؟
أبوه في اليابان. هو تاجر كبير.
ألك أخ يا محمد؟
نعم لي أخ واحد. اسمه أسمة. وهو معي هنا في بالمدينة في المدينة المنورة.
Very good. Keep going. You got it.
في المدينة المنورة. ولي أخت واحد اسمها زينب وهي في العراق مع زوجها. زوجها مهندس.
Good. We're almost there. Last two lines.
عندك سيارة يا أخي.
Good.
لا ما عندي سيارة. عندي درجة حمزة عنده سيارة.
MashaAllah. Allahu Akbar. Wow. Okay. So tell me, both of you, how much, let's give a percentage of how much you feel like you understood of that while you were reading it.
60 to 70%.
Yeah.
Good. Fantastic. That's the sweet spot. That's exactly what we're going for. Around that is challenging enough that we're learning and unfamiliar enough that it's not boring. I let them go on purpose, just kind of trying to make their way through it as best they could. This is a step up in difficulty from anything we've done before. This is like a 3-page conversation compared to the other very small, dialogues that were in previous chapters. Sometimes they were multiple examples, just 2 or 3 lines each, and I was kind of breaking it up among you. We're going to have everybody read through this with a partner one time during class, inshallah, so that everybody can get that practice. And so we're going to be reading it next class. So if you have time to practice in between this class and next class, definitely try it out. In the remaining time for today, I'm going to try to just give vocabulary and point out the relationship between what we just discussed, pronouns, and the dialogue. So we have men, anta, straightforward enough. Anta is a subject pronoun. Who are you? Ana, talibun, bil jamia. Okay, bi is a flexible preposition in Arabic that means many, many things. We use it in this context to mean at the university. I'm a student at the university. It has many more meanings than just that, but that's what it means here. Anta talibun jadidun, again, another subject pronoun. Na'am ana talibun jadidun. Min aina anta, where are you from? Ana min al-Hind. Masmuka, okay. So we have ism, which is name. Okay, ism is a name. Ismu, and now what is happening is we've added the possessive pronoun, your name. Masmuka. We run these two together because the first letter is a hamzatul wasl, and so we do not pronounce it unless it's at the beginning of a sentence. So masmuka, masmuki, masmukum, all ways of asking various types of people what their name is. Okay, is everybody clear up to this point on this screen, for those of you who don't have the book along with you? Any questions about what's on the screen right now? That's fairly straightforward. Okay, and everything else that comes later is just variations on the theme. Okay, notice, okay, so we have ism, which means name. Ismuka, what's your name? He replies, Ismi, Muhammadun, right? My name is Muhammadun. There's our mubtada, there's our khabar, and this is the simple, right? Just like our graph showed or our chart showed just a second ago. Ismi, my name. The default possessive pronoun is just simply a ya. وَمَنْ هَذَا الْفَتَى. Okay, fata is a new word, I think. Fata means young man. It's not quite, it's older than walad, right? But younger than rajul. So al-fata is young man. Alladhi ma'ak. We have a new preposition, ma'a. And ma'a means with. And that's fairly straightforward. Pretty much translates one-to-one with English. Notice that we can add possessive pronouns to prepositions. With you, ma'aka. Ma'i, with me. Ma'akum, with you all. What's his answer? Muhammad says, huwa, subject pronoun, he is, because it's mubtada khabar, zamili. Zamil, I'm not sure if we had that word before, but zamil means classmate or colleague. Here it means classmate. I'll just leave it for what it is. Classmate. And notice that it has the first person possessive ending or possessive pronoun. He's my classmate. Huwa zamil, zamili. Ahuwa aydan min al-Hind? Is he also? I believe we've learned aydan before. Aydan means also. If we haven't, I'll put it up there. Ahuwa aydan min al-Hindi? La, huwa min al-Yabani. Masmuhu. Ah, look, we're using ism in all these ways. Ismuka, ismi, ismuhu. What is his name? Who? His classmate, this young man who is with him. Anybody have any questions on this screen? Take your screenshots, whatever you need to do. Okay, I'm going to erase and move on. Masmuhu, what's his name? Ismuhu Hamzatu. His name is Hamza. Possessive pronoun right there. Mubtada khabar. Ma lughatuka. The word here is lughatun. Lughatun is language, right? But now, check out what happened. We added a possessive pronoun to it. So we have to straighten out this ta marbuta, because ta marbutas don't happen in the middle of words, into a normal ta. Lughatuka. Your language. Ma lughatuka ya Muhammadu. And Dr. Zia correctly noticed that Muhammadun becomes Muhammadu after ya. What is your language? What language do you speak? Now we're taking the noun lugha or lughatun, and now we're adding different possessive pronouns to it. Lughati, my language, which is mubtada al-urdiyatu, urdu. Al-urdiyatu. He asks a follow-up question. He says, ahiya, is it? Now look at how he used a subject pronoun to refer back to lugha, because that's what you've already been talking about. Is it a hard language? Or sorry, he says, is it an easy language here? Sahlatun, easy. He could have said lughatun sahlatun hiya or something else, but he said ahiya lughatun sahlatun. Is Urdu an easy language? Hiya here fills in for al-urdiya. The answer, نعم. هي لغة سهلة. And you all can agree or disagree with his assessment of Urdu. لغة سهلة. Simple.
Is it ahia because lugatu is a feminine word?
I misspoke. It's not. Hiya refers back to al-Urdiya and not Lugha here, because Lugha is stated. But yes, if it were referring to Lugha, it would have been Hiya because Lugha is feminine. Al-Urdiya, because of its tamarbuta, is feminine. And so that's why we use Hiya instead of Huwa. وَحَمْزَةُ مَا لُغَتُهُ. Good. This shows us that its lugha is a feminine noun, but we're talking about who's possessing it. Whose language is it? We're talking about Hamza, and that's why we use a masculine possessive pronoun. Well, Hamza, ma lughatuhu. What's Hamza's language? Lughatuhu al-yabaniyatu. Wahiya, meaning al-yabaniya, feminine word with the tamarbuta. Lughatun sa'abatun. Sa'aba is the feminine version of sa'abun, which means difficult. Aina abuka ya Muhammadu. Abuka comes from ab, and we'll talk about, there's a little bit of a funny thing going on here with the well. We don't have enough time to talk about it today. We'll talk about it next class. But ab means father. And so abuka is your father. Any questions on anything here? Okay, I'm going to erase and scroll. Abi. See what he does there. He adds the ya to make it my father. Abi fil Kuwaiti. My father is in Kuwait. Huwa, he is mubtada khabar tabibun shahirun. He is a famous doctor. Wa aina ummuka. Is mother. Ummuka, your mother. Hiya, she, subject pronoun. أيضا في الكويت مع أبي, with my father. هي مدرسة هناك. She is a teacher there. ذهبت, we have not learned conjugation for verbs yet. We'll do that next class. We're out of time today. إلى الكويت يا محمد. Have you gone to Kuwait, Muhammad? نعم ذهبت. Again, we'll learn that next class. وَزَمِيلُكَ, your classmate. أَيْنَ أَبُوهُ, where is his father? So we had أَبُوكَ, now we have أَبُوهُ, his father. أَبُوهُ بِالْيَابَانِ هُوَ تَاجِرٌ كَبِيرٌ. MashaAllah. Let's scroll down.
When we're asking, we're asking the physical location of his father. How would you say where is your father from, like your heritage or whatever?
Say min aina, from where? So that's the difference between aina and min aina. Aina means where, right now. Min aina, from where? From where does he come? From where is he? Good question. Alaka. Remember our lam before? This was for possession. Now we're putting on a possessive pronoun to it. Laka, for yours. Do you have? And we're fairly over time, and this is the biggest sentence in this example. So I'm inclined to actually stop here. And next class, we will pick up where we left off. We'll explain the rest of the conversation. And we will all practice this dialogue. It's a very, very important dialogue. And we'll talk about verb conjugation. And we'll talk about the differences between using li for possession versus using inda, which is what we get into here in the end. Did someone have a question?
Yes, one question.
Turn right.
So, Ana ismi Muhammad and Ana ismi is probably redundant. We cannot say that, right?
Correct. Arabic hates redundancy, but you can't say ana ismi. Very good point. And this is actually exactly what all of your children did in Sunday school last week. I taught them this exact lesson about possessive pronoun. And the first instinct was to make sentences ana ismi, because that's how we kind of think about the order in English. But what we're doing with the order in Arabic is we're reversing it. Ismi is literally name, my. Right? It's not my name. Because in English we say my name, we want to say ana ismi. No, nobody would. Anybody hears you saying that, they'll be like, oh, that's the next question will be, where are you from? Right? Because that's not something a native Arabic speaker would ever say. Ismi Muhammadun. Anything you can eliminate, eliminate it. That's the rule with Arabic. Sometimes to a fault. But not with this stuff. This stuff is very clear. Anybody else? Any questions?
Sorry, I'm gonna pick on the same thing again. So I can say Ana Muhammad or no?
Yes, ana Muhammad. Ana Muhammad means I am Muhammad. That's a complete sentence, right? Because ana serves a purpose in that sentence that can't be replaced by anything else, right? But when you say Ismi Muhammad, right, that's also a complete sentence. You're not talking about you, you're talking about my name. And so adding something else like my name is Muhammad would be redundant. Saying Ana Ismi Muhammad is basically saying my name is Muhammad, which we don't say in English, right? So, good. Anyone else? Okay, great work, everybody. Happy to see us getting into some more difficult stuff. It's exciting to move on to new things, and we'll get through it together, inshallah. So we'll practice the conversation and go over it more next time, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.